Today I want to talk about the best way to stack and dry firewood. Now, I was talking with someone from Arizona a few years ago, and they were just new to the area, and they went and bought a wood stove, and they said, we need to go cut some trees down so that we can have some wood for our wood stove. And we had to have a long conversation about how you actually prepare wood so you can burn it in a wood stove. The same thing can apply to a fireplace too, but you don't just go outside, cut down a tree, and then expect to burn it. So we're gonna have a conversation about that, how that works, and I'm gonna show you, again, the best way that I believe is the best way to stack and dry your firewood so you have great burning wood. So the type of wood you're probably going to want to burn in most places is oak. Now there are some extreme places I've heard about, like in Alaska and other spots where they actually burn pine, but in a lot of chimneys, pine can actually gum up your chimney and cause chimney fires. So look for something more like a hardwood, like an oak. But if you're going to cut down your tree, get some advice, watch some YouTube videos, ask some people who know what they're doing. Maybe if you're not used to that, you don't know a lot about it, then maybe you should skip that part and just buy from someone else. But what you're going to want to do at that point is you're going to want to cut up the tree into pieces that are the right size to fit inside either your fireplace or your wood stove. So if your wood stove is a 24-inch wood stove, you're going to want to splice your wood and cut your wood up maybe 22 inches, 20 inches, somewhere around there so that you can actually finagle it and get it in there. If you have a fireplace, it's not as big of a deal because they're usually more wide open. So once your tree is cut up, you're going to have a bunch of logs that look kind of like this. And as I said, you want to make sure that they will fit in your fireplace or wood stove. All right, from there you need to split your wood. Now some people actually use a log splitter. You can either rent one of these from your local store, or maybe you've got somebody around you that has a log splitter. They can run anywhere from $800 to a couple $1,000 depending on how good they are. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying one unless you know you're going to get that investment back. You can also use just a regular axe, or something I like is called a maul. And this is what a maul looks like. It's basically like a sledgehammer with a sharp end. So it really uses that weight to break through the wood and cut it up really well. So again, pick whatever works best for you, but once you have your wood split like this, you're going to go ahead and want to stack it. So let's talk a little bit about stacking. So there's lots of different ways to stack wood. Everybody seems to have a different way that they like, but this one has consistently produced dry wood, and I really enjoy it. You use these T-posts, as you can kind of see right over here. These T-posts, they hold everything up, and I'll show you in a second what it looks like without any wood on it. This really lets the sun dry the wood well, and it also creates airflow, which you can kind of see in between all these different rows. The air kind of moves in there, and those are kind of two things you want. You want direct sunlight and you want airflow. And those are the two things that will really dry out your wood and make them great to burn. So here's what an empty rack looks like. You're gonna have 4 sets of T-posts here, and you're gonna just basically drive those into the ground. You need something, it doesn't have to be exactly like this kind of a ladder setup, but you need something to keep, as you can see over here, this base level of wood off of the ground, otherwise it will rot. So at this point, you're just gonna bring your wood over and stack it. And you want to just make sure that as you're putting it on here, that you don't have wood going too far, one way or the other. I have kids that often help us, and if your wood is, you got a lot of pieces that are off center, kind of this way, your wood will have a tendency to want to shift over and maybe even fall over this direction. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but somewhat centered in there, and just move all the way down your row. So once your wood is fully stacked, you're going to go ahead and put your roofing tin on there, and then also you can throw a couple of either cinder blocks or rocks you see on this side, whatever that is, just to put a little bit of weight on there because the wind will try to blow that off. You can also grab, it's not on this side here, but on this side you can see just got a little bit of wire there that I keep on hand. If you kind of wrap that on there, and that just makes sure that it doesn't go anywhere. So you can see there's about 4 or 5 feet between each row, and that's pretty good because it enables you to get in here, and if you need to get some wood, from this side over here, you got plenty of space. It's also good because if you're running like a lawnmower, riding lawnmower, push mower, weed eater, you can do all that pretty easily. I did want to show you one other cool thing. This is just a simple thing that you can make out of 2x4s, but if your wood does start to lean a little bit, you can use a contraption like this to have two people push up against it, and it'll actually move the wood, and that way you don't have to pull it down and restack. So when I first saw this type of stacking, I was a little concerned because I thought, you know, what if it gets rained on the sides? And then some people had to explain to me, well, if you think about a log, once you cut that into the sections and then you split that, you're giving a place for the water to escape. So they will get rained on like this, like these sides, but it's not going to suck all that in and absorb it to the point where it messes the wood up. So I want you to see the difference between wood that's been more freshly cut right here and then wood that's been down for about 1.5 years. Last winter wasn't super harsh, so we had a little bit of wood left over, which is, you know, good for the video. But you can see the coloration in the wood that's been, you know, cut for a long time versus this is still what some people call green, and that just means it's been cut more recently and it just hasn't dried out yet. You can kind of notice the difference between how kind of smooth this is versus how dried up and splintering this wood is here. So that's just going to tell you that the water has been drawn out of this one. And you can also check on the sides. You can see wood that's been dried often has what some people call chinks or checks. And you'll see these kind of cracks starting to go through there. And that just basically shows you that the wood has been dried out. So one other thing to note is that wood that has been dried for a long period of time is going to be lighter. Now this one, let's see, I don't know if you can tell, this one is actually longer, but it is actually lighter than this piece right here. And that's just because all of the water is still inside this piece of wood and most of the water is gone from this one. Finally, if you're buying wood from someone and you're not going to be cutting the tree down yourself, a couple things you want to know are, you know, when the tree was actually felled. The term just means when it was actually cut down, and how long ago it was split. Some people will tell you, oh, this tree has been down for 2 years. Well, if the bark, if it's not actually been split and cut up and been drying, then a lot of that moisture is still inside that log, so that doesn't really matter. What you want to know is when it was actually split and stacked and how long it's been drying for. So I'd recommend that you have your wood dried for at least 1 year before you use it. So my folks in Arizona, they were kind of way off there, but I've used some wood that's a little less than that, but what you may wind up hearing is wood that's been sitting in the sun for maybe 6 months, 8 months. When you put it in your wood stove, you're going to hear a sizzling sound. And if you actually look in there, you're going to see water coming out of the ends of the wood. That's because it's not been dried thoroughly. So at least 1 year is what I recommend. If you can do 1.5 years, something like that, just make sure, again, it's not going punky or going bad. And you'll be really good when you put your wood in there. In your fireplace, your wood stove, you'll see it catch really, really quickly. And sometimes if your embers, if all you have left is embers in a wood stove and you put really dry wood in there, sometimes it will just catch without you having to really do much to that. That's when you know you've got some really good quality wood. Anyways, I hope this was helpful for you. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments section below. Make sure that you like and subscribe and look out for the next video.